So this video is just going to be very off the top because I tried to sit there and write it down, but I was like, then it sounds like a book or recited kind of. So I'm just going to go with, I'll give you first off my, everyone's basic things, and then I'll go into things that I feel are, I guess, vital to my character or, yeah, personality. I don't know. I'm just going to go. So, I was originally born in Ohio. I only spent about a couple of years there. My mother decided to join the Navy, which caused us to move to North Carolina. I was like 3 or 4. Old enough to start pre-K, I think, something like that. So, she joined the Navy, and bang, she's been there. She was in the military until I was about, like 2 or 3 years ago. So she was in there almost 20. She was just shy of 20 years. That's a whole nother story in itself. So throughout that, we went from North Carolina to Virginia to Florida, back to Virginia, then back to Florida, then to Mississippi. And then I went to school in North Carolina for my first year, then moved back home to Mississippi with them, and ended up back in Florida. So I've lived in Florida 3 to 4 times, I'd say, something like that. So if anyone asks me where I'm from, I kind of tend to lean towards Florida. I spent a lot of time there. I had my first child there, my first place, stuff like that. Me and my husband, well, he was just my boyfriend at the time. He was going to school there. I received my cosmetology license there, all that. So Florida's a very important place for me, even though I don't like really what's going on with Florida now. Anyway, throughout that, so around 5, my mom met my first stepfather. They didn't get married immediately. They kind of just dated a little bit here and there or whatever. I just remember him as the man that's always brought us fried chicken and $5. That's what he chose to do for us. So, because my mom was a single mother of 2 kids, me and my brother. And so, so she dated him from 5 on. She didn't marry him until 10. Until I was 10. Make sure you guys know what I'm saying. When I was 10 is when they got married. But in the midst of that, not too long after they really started dating, maybe a year or 2, I can't even remember because it all just seems so scrunched together, but he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. So he had some health issues, but it kind of just looked like he was depressed because he wouldn't come out the room or whatever. He kind of just stayed closed off to himself for about a year, maybe. Again, don't get me quoted on the time frames of these things because I was small. I just remember the events. And so he was, like I said, he was depressed. Like, people would just have to come and bang on the ceiling with the broom to, like, hello, because they wouldn't go to the door because he didn't want to bother him, disturb him, or whatever the case was. So I guess once he was actually prescribed and actually taking his medications is when he got a little more open. He's out, we're a little more social. He actually drove places, stuff like that. He became a little more normal. But what was it? We were living in Virginia because she met him while we were living in North Carolina when she first joined, because he was also in the service. So from that point on, they had both been stationed in Virginia. I'm not sure if he had, I'm not even sure if by that time he had gotten out. I think he was actually still in, but I don't know. I think he might have been, I don't know. Didn't pay attention to that. But everybody was in Virginia. And what else was I going to say? Oh, we had moved to Virginia, and that was the first time we got to move there. Loved Virginia. And I remember this one house, it was on Wells Street. I don't know. It was just like my favorite house. But I would say there are things there that I just truly I don't like to remember. Because like I said, once he finally started taking his medications, he was a little more social. He was doing socially unacceptable things. The best way to describe it would be he chose to not be a father figure for me. He chose to be a what is the word? I just slipped my mind. Pedophile. Sorry. He chose to mentally and sexually abuse me. And I didn't quite understand initially, like, because I had known him for a couple, he was like 7 or 8, so I known him for a good 3 or 4 years. So it was a confusing time, and nobody knew. I didn't know how to tell anybody, and I kind of just let it be, whatever it was. I was never raped, which I thank God for by him, but there were other things that went on that were not acceptable and will never ever be acceptable between a father, because he was supposed to be my father regardless of the blood DNA or whatever. You chose to be with my mother. Y'all been together this time. You chose to help take care of me, and that's what you were supposed to do, and you didn't. So that went on all the way up to the time they got married. And right after they got married, it just, because I was freaking out. I didn't know. I didn't want them to get married. So I just kind of kept it to myself. And then like one day I just exploded, and I just started writing it down, like exploded, like crying, like I just was freaking out. Like I used to have little, I guess what you would consider anxiety or panic attacks at that young of an age, because I just didn't know how to feel about things. And so I wrote my mom a letter disclosing to her what had happened. And I don't know if I wrote her the letter first or my best friend's mom told her, because I told my best friend, and my best friend told her mom, and she brought it to my mom. I think I wrote the letter first, and then I didn't know, because I didn't know what was going on and what was happening, because it didn't seem like anything was happening. And I told my best friend, and I think she told her mother. And then by the time my mom heard it that time, the next step was family counseling. So we went and got family counseling. Well, it wasn't really family counseling. It was really counseling for me. And I didn't like the lady. I wouldn't speak to her. She was like, okay, what's wrong? I'm sorry. I'm a 10-year-old who has been abused, and you want to know what's wrong with you. That's not what you say. So I sat quietly. I didn't speak to her at all. I sat there and just looked at her the whole time. And got out. When I left out, I started crying, because I was just so upset that, first off, she didn't care. Secondly, it was just a horrible experience. Like, stuff like that will stick with you. And my feelings were so hurt, because I was just like, nobody really cares. Nobody really cares about this. I done said it. And it still just, it didn't seem like he was being punished or he was being held accountable, because I think they had him do some counseling too. They counseled him and seen if he was, I guess, off his medicine or whatever the case was. So basically, the results of it was nothing. Not to say that family counseling doesn't work. You have to find the right people, and the people have to be willing to do counseling. And that whole thing right there was just a hot mess, a hot mess. So once all that went through, my mom was like, what do you want me to do? You want me to divorce him? At that age, I was like, no, I just want you to be happy. And that's what I told her. It's like, I'm not mad at my mom for asking that. I understand why. It's because she didn't know what to do either. She was confused, just like I was. Like, what do you do in that situation? I said, no, I just want you to be happy. Because my thing was, as long as he just leave me alone after that, I didn't care. I just wanted you to stop making me feel nervous, or like I can't be around you alone, or stuff like that. I just want to be able to live comfortably in my house. And I feel like you're going to do something and know that you won't. So that was my thing. So between 10 and 16, there were times that he made me a little nervous, because he really didn't do anything else except maybe once or twice, but I locked it down, and I just never really made myself in a situation like that. And the times that there was a situation getting close to it, I made sure I changed it, that it didn't happen. And so like if my mom were to be out to sea for months, I'd go live with my aunt. Like I just wouldn't be there. Totally like, okay mom, I see you when you get back. Going with my aunt, you know, and that's what would happen. So I lived with him all the way up until the time I was 18. So that's a whole nother 8 years. He was still there when I went off to college. And of course, by this time, when I was 12, they had a child together, which is my youngest sister. And so I was always scared for her. But I'm not scared for her, because God's got it. And then secondly, he's not the same person that he was then, and he treats her so differently than he treats me, and they don't live together. He's in another state. So with that being disclosed, she's okay. And that's all I prayed for after that. I was like, I just don't want nothing to happen to her. Especially once I found out my mom was having a girl when I was 12. I was like, oh God. And so I was her little protector. Like I would let her sleep in the room with me at night, and also set my door locked. So I felt like I was protecting her, because I felt like no one else could or would or had the time or whatever. So around, like I said, they were together up until around the time I was 18. So from about 12 on, like from the time my sister was born, everything was really good, really smooth, nothing really going on. He had his moments where if he wasn't on his medication, he'd be weird or he'd lose it a little bit, like just little stuff. But this isn't all about him, but the reason I have to explain to you all of this is because these events helped mold me into who I am now, and has helped me to see how I'm supposed to help people, or, you know, stuff like that. So we were living in Mississippi, and I went to school in North Carolina for my first year, and my mom got sick, and so I came home after my first year, and I was like, okay, I'll just go to school here. I'll just go to school back home. I'll still get in state, because I wasn't there long enough to get residency there, so I just, you know, come back home. And I got back home, and I had a little job at Dollar General. And within that month, I'm sorry. Within that month, Hurricane Katrina came. All the stuff gone. We got to save a few things, like a couple of movies, a couple of pictures, really no clothes, because I mean, like, everything was crazy. So it was crazy. I'll be back and I'll tell you that whole segment, because that's one thing in its own. So if you want to know from that point on, check out the next one. I just don't want this video to be too long, so I think I'm going to break it up in segments. So see you on the next one.